Okay, we're live, Chair.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for coming to this meeting on the 22nd of July 2021 for Monmouthshire County Council. We'll start going through the agenda straight into item number 1, which is apologies for absence. I've received apology. Yeah.
Chair, yes. We've had apologies from councillors Tony Eason, Kevin Williams, Dave Evans and Sarah Jones.
Chairman, could I give apologies for Councillor Peter Clark, please?
Thank you, Councillor Woodhouse. Thank you. Any other
apologies from Councillor Jen to join the meeting, but he's still tied up with work and children at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Watkins. And Sarah, I think you gave apologies to Sarah, didn't you? Nick did, I think. Okay, thank you very much all. Moving on to item number 2, declarations of interest. Do any members have declarations?
Chairman, do we have to declare a declaration if we're governors of schools because the schools are being discussed or not?
Thank you, Councillor Powell. I think what we'll take those, because there'll be a number of councillors in the same position. Yes. So we'll take those as read, but we will collect all those declarations at the end. So councillors don't have to give those declarations at this stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, may I just ask a question, please?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Howarth.
If family members are part of Monmouthshire's Leisure Active programme, i.e. pay membership to that, do we have to declare an interest about alterations and the investment we're making in the leisure complexes, Abergavenny and Chepstow?
I'm advised not by the monitoring officer.
We're not?
Don't have to make declarations, no.
Okay, I thought it was provisional. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gruker.
I'm sorry, I couldn't get in right at the start. Are we doing declarations of interest, Chair?
We are, and what we've said, Martin, is that we wouldn't, members that are sat on governing bodies for schools don't have to declare interests, or we will collect those interests later on. So they don't have to make the declaration now.
Okay, that's fine. That's what it was. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you all. Moving on then to public questions. I don't believe we've had any. Can you confirm, Nick, please?
Yes, Chair. Sorry, there's no public questions today.
Okay, thank you. And then moving on to item number 4, chairman's announcements and receipts of petitions. From my chairman's announcement, unfortunately, is to mention the recent passing of the past chairman's lady, Mrs. Thelma Breeze, who was chairman's lady from 2006 to 2007. So just to let everyone know that that's the unfortunate news. And I believe we have a petition from Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a petition regarding the continuation of maintained nursery provision once the all-through school in Abergavenny comes to fruition. It reads, "We, the undersigned, are members of the local community living near Derryview Primary School. We believe there has been a lack of effective consultation about the plans to build a new all-through school. In particular, we want the nursery in the proposed new school to remain a full part of the school and not be put under private control." I have gained or will be presenting about 350 signatures from parents, the local community and grandparents and so on who collect children from the nursery. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Grocott. Are you okay? Just forward that to me by email in that case.
I have said I will deliver it to County Hall tomorrow.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and thank you for that petition. Okay, moving on then to item 5, reports for council. 5.1, leisure centre upgrades to facilities. Councillor Dimmock.
Thank you, Chair. I'm delighted to be bringing this report on leisure centre upgrades to full council today. The pandemic has disrupted the leisure and fitness industry, but has highlighted the importance of health and well-being and provided us with an opportunity to look at what we have on offer and the enhancements we can make to improve the health of our community. We have seen a drop-off in membership compared to prior to the pandemic. These income losses were supported by the Welsh Government Hardship Fund in 2021 and should be recovered in 21-22. But we need to encourage users, both old and new, to return. To do this, we need to improve the user experience and ensure we are providing services fit for purpose. Office have worked with our development partner, Alliance Leisure Services, and developed the following plan. It was requested a redesign and refurb be undertaken at Abergavenny Leisure Centre, but major works cannot start until the new school is complete in 2024. So the initial phase would see a conversion of the first floor to the health and fitness hub with new fitness suite, spin studio, fitness studio, viewing area and ground floor pool and changing rooms. This cost proposal is 1.7 million and estimated to take 20 weeks, which will see a loss of income during the construction. So we are looking at alternative arrangements, but we need to work with the school to use the facilities. Caldicot Leisure Centre is in the middle of a Levelling Up grant fund bid from UK government, and we expect to hear an outcome early autumn. So any developments have been put on hold for the time being. Chepstow Leisure Centre, we are carrying out a minor refurbishment, focusing on improving tired areas throughout the cafe area, reception, viewing area for the pool, and to provide a more customer-friendly experience at the cost of 225,000. And the cardiovascular suite will see an upgrade in the equipment and the outdoor fitness rig, estimated at 275,000. Seeing a request for 2.2 million from the capital receipts. So I'm now happy to take any questions from members. Thank you.
Hand, where's my hand? I haven't got a hand, Chairman. Can I come in? And you're muted, Chairman.
Councillor Powell, I'm happy to take you as a first up. So yeah, please.
Couldn't get a hand. All right. Thank you very much. I'd like to support doing everything we can at the Leisure Centre. I've used it since 1976. I used to just go at weekends in those days, and then later on, when I moved actually in Monmouthshire, I went regularly 5 mornings a week swimming and playing squash when I was able to. And loads of people use the facilities that help their health. I mean, people of our generation, we need to keep moving, we need to keep active in all ways. And if we haven't got a really good leisure centre for them to go and practice and exercise all their various muscles and parts of their body, they will be more of a burden on the health service. A leisure centre is a great insurance against the number of people attending the doctors each week. So I think it's very, very important that we do this improvements as soon as we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pell. I'll take Councillor Grocott next because he put his hand up physically, and then I'll go back to Councillor Armour-Watts. So, Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome the proposed upgrade at Abergavenny Leisure Centre, where I'm an almost daily user, which may surprise some people, just looking at the state of me. But there is concern among the users there that there is talk of the facilities having to be closed for 20 weeks in order to make the improvements. Could I ask officers to do their very best to ensure that disruption is minimised and that as much use of some of the machines in the gym are kept going during the rebuilding phase? I don't know if there are other rooms in the leisure centre or in the school gymnasium, for example, but having lost that facility for such a long time, to now be coming back to daily use of it, only to find it shut again, would not be conducive to good use and encouraging people to join. So I think I speak on behalf of everybody that uses the gym facilities at Abergavenny Leisure Centre. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Grocott. I'll go to Councillor Watts.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Lisa, I have got a couple of questions for you, and specifically about, to begin with, about Caldicot, about the Levelling Up grant and the anticipated money that you expect to get from the Levelling Up grant. I appreciate the announcements haven't made, but for you to have effectively brought forward this as part of a budget proposal, you probably might have anticipated what the spend will be. Sorry, that noise in the background is my phone buzzing from this meeting, so I'll turn that off. So how much money is involved there? As far as Chepstow is concerned, where does this fit in with the overall strategic plan for Chepstow Leisure Centre and the school, with the with I guess the 12-month improvements? And specifically, what is your view then on potential spend and encouragement on adult learning, specifically, extending, going back to some kind of regime where you've got effectively adult learning classes, and the vast array that was very well received in the past. Those are my questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dimmock, do you want to answer those now?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Armand. The Caldicot bid is in the region of 20 million, which would see 8.4 million to go towards Caldicot Leisure Centre. With regards to Chepstow, obviously they had investment of 1.5 million around 16 years ago, and delivered 3 additional large spaces on the ground floor, which has given us an excellent provision to house the community room, nursery and facilities, the exercise referral scheme. Obviously, COVID has impacted us greatly. We would have been underway at Caldicot, we would have been starting at Abergavenny. So it has moved things and delayed us, doing the works that we require. It's not to say that we're not going to look at future investment for Chepstow. I'd like to see big improvements to Chepstow, but Chepstow has had a lot of money spent in the last 10 years. If you visited Abergavenny and Caldicot, you'd see that it's not the same. We don't get complaints of the standard. But yes, you're right, it will need a refurbishment eventually. And sorry, what was the other question?
No, it's quite you've obviously done your homework there. Sorry, I'm just turning off my phone. The question was about adult learning. So effectively, this obviously through COVID, that people have been able to access those services, and I think we all agree collectively, irrespective of our political beliefs, that adult learning or future life learning is essential, really, to the quality of life within our communities. And it was particularly kind of popular in Chepstow. I wanted to know what you thought. This was an opportunity for me to ask you what you thought about how that would be expanded, what kind of resources you intended to put in it. Of course, I can only speak for Chepstow, but I guess you can speak about it broadly for Monmouthshire.
Okay. I suppose I haven't really thought about that, but I will discuss that with you happily. What sort of things do you have in mind?
Well, look, I wanted to see, so we have historically, in the last, I guess, 10 years, we rolled out kind of extended adult learning. There's been much debate, I think, in meetings, probably just before your time, about, the fees involved in that. So that's always going to be, the accessibility and affordability, particularly for the people who have are predominantly service users. So service users tend to be people that need the service, if that makes a lot of sense. And what I was looking to do was try to get you to think about, or get you to kind of talk about possibly how some of the adult learning classes would extend it. So beyond the basics of learning French, Italian in the evening classes and doing a bit of sewing, where you thought that adult learning was going.
But I think we can always expand on that. At a time where people have been locked up in their homes the last 16 months, I think now's a better time than ever. But Ian Saunders, my chief officer, would like to come in there, but I'd happily meet with you, Armand, and we can discuss what you'd like to see as your vision in Chepstow for the adult learning. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, how long have you got? I mean, I can bore the backside off Ian and yourself whenever you want. Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, both. Does Ian want to come in now? Ian?
Chair, I wasn't sure whether you wanted me to take the questions at the end or of all the members, or whether, so I've written some down just in case you wanted me to reply, or whether Councillor Dimmock's going to cover them all off. But
I think we'll bring you in at the end then, Ian, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Cheers. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and I really welcome this report, and I thank the Cabinet Member and the officers for presenting it. And I think it's, as an Abergavenny Leisure Centre user myself, we must recognise that Abergavenny Leisure Centre has a very broad reach, and Councillor Grocott only represents his area in Abergavenny, but in fact it is much broader than that, and it comes up here to Connethley Hill. It is badly needed. I mean, I recently returned back to the leisure centre, having been absent for a long time, and the staff were fantastic. But it does need, for example, the gym doesn't have an area where you can stretch out before you start to exercise. So these improvements really are welcomed. And I think it is absolutely brilliant when many of our neighbouring authorities have actually closed their leisure centres, that this Conservative administration is investing in the well-being of our residents. So I really welcome this report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And yeah, I welcome this as well. I look at it more from a financial point of view. All of our leisure centres have historically taken an awful lot of financial support, but we proved in Monmouth that that by making the right sort of investment, giving people what they want, membership can easily be encouraged to use it a lot more. You get a lot more income in. Monmouth was more or less washing its face financially, and I'm quite sure the others will too. So I really do welcome this. It's something that we've needed to do for a long time. I don't think it's right to delay these particular schemes any longer. We need to be getting on with them now so that we can build them all back up. And clearly Caldicott will catch up as soon as we hear about the Levelling Up Fund. So this is a good move, I'm sure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Woodhouse.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to offer my support to this project. It's a very important project, and I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member, Councillor Lisa Dimmock, the officers and all of the Cabinet for actually offering their support to this. Much needed. These improvements are much needed. It'd be very good to give our residents a choice of how they choose to exercise. So improving these facilities will attract more residents, I'm sure, to make use of our leisure centres. And I urge all members this afternoon to give their support to this project, which concentrates on improving people's health and well-being, which is of paramount importance. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Good morning, good afternoon rather, Chairman and members. And I just wanted to also lend my support to this. This is an area which has seen a huge investment in Monmouthshire over many years, and just demonstrates a different mindset we have in this county compared to other areas where often we see services like this closed. They're the first port of call when people are trying to make money, and we don't do that. We're thinking of the future. We're thinking of well-being, and I think this is some great steps forward. We look forward to the longer term goals for Caldicott and for Chepstow in due course, and obviously we'll see Abergavenny come out of the ground even more so once the new build's there. So thank you, Lisa. Thanks for Cabinet for focusing on this. I think it's the right approach. You know, and too long we've seen leisure being a lost leader in many councils. Here it's a priority. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Richard John.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I'd also like to add my thanks to Councillor Dimmock, who's really been championing this and leading a really bold vision for the future of our leisure centres in the county, and also to thank all our officers in Mon Life for the fantastic work they've been doing on these projects. We're really proud of this investment, and I think the last 18 months has been such a challenging time for so many of our residents across the county. And it's had a real negative impact on people's mental and physical health. And there's a real responsibility for us as a council to consider what we can do to make it easier for people to take greater responsibility for their own mental and physical well-being, and investments in these leisure centres and making them more accessible to people, improving the standard of the offer, is absolutely critical to enabling people to do that, and ensuring that all of us do more to look after ourselves and ensure we have happy and fulfilling lives and make our communities more resilient. So I'm absolutely delighted that even in these really challenging financial times, where we've seen a massive increase in construction inflation, that we've been able to make these commitments. You can see from Monmouth Leisure Centre, and I'm a member there, it's such a modern and efficient, clean, inviting, accessible leisure environment, with the open plan changing village by the pool, the open plan cafe with soft play, that draws many people who perhaps don't use the leisure centre facilities in, and is a way of then getting them involved in the community and some of the physical activity that's on offer there. So really proud of this investment today, and I have to say also really proud of the local members who've really been championing this. So I'm particularly in Abergavenny and Chepstow, so really grateful for that engagement that we've had. And we, as Lisa said, we look forward to the results of the UK government's consideration of the Levelling Up bids. We'd be absolutely delighted to work with the UK government on the Levelling Up Fund and use that as a way of investing in our communities, and Caldicot Leisure Centre could certainly benefit from that. So really pleased, really delighted with this investment today. It's a real step forward in making our communities more resilient, ensuring that these services continue to be sustainable long into the future. And I hope that many residents across our county will be able to benefit from this investment we're making today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I've got some members have made me aware that they wanted to speak in the chat bar as opposed to raising their hands. So I've got 3 members there first, which is Councillor Greenland, Councillor Penny Jones, Councillor Paul Jordan, and then we'll go back into the raised hands and hand function for Councillor Howard Giles. So Councillor Greenland.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I always wonder why leisure services are called discretionary services, because I think they're one of those services that we can provide for residents, because physical fitness is an absolute essential, and it's particularly important that we try to beat the child obesity issues that we know that we have. And I'm really impressed with the way that Councillor Dimmock has really grabbed this portfolio and got to grips with it, and is working so well with the officers. So I obviously welcome the report. A couple of things to say, perhaps. Councillor Graucott said he hoped that there would not be too much downtime or closure time. Well, it's in no one's interests to close any of our leisure centres for these essential works, but sometimes it is inevitable. Certainly from the County Council's point of view, simply from an income point of view, it would be disastrous if we had to close any more than was absolutely necessary. So I'm absolutely certain that Councillor Dimmock and the officers will be working to ensure that those period is minimal as possible. You know, we want good services in leisure right across the county, but we can't do it all at once because of the limitations we have in resources. And it's absolutely right, the order that we're doing them in. And obviously, as far as Caldicot is concerned, this way to get that Levelling Up Fund, because that will help us enormously if we can get that help the Western Government for that. So I welcome the report, and I look forward to further news of improvements right across the centres that we have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Penny Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm having problems as well with my computer. Yes, as the Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care, I obviously endorse these measures to improve the leisure centres, and really thank Councillor Lisa Dimmock and Ian Saunders and team for all the work they've done to improve them. And I just wanted to say how proud I am that Monmouthshire has continued to support leisure centres in the way that it does, because, you know, the effect it has on people's health and well-being. You know, in contrast to many other local authorities who haven't been so lucky and been able to keep their leisure centres. So I just wanted to thank them and say how important it is, and I thoroughly endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. This is good news for Abergavenny, good news for Monmouthshire, and it's indeed good news that Councillor Grocott is supporting this proposal. It's good to see that we have cross-party support for what we're doing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Howard Giles. Giles Howard.
Thank you, Chairman. I haven't an awful lot to add to other members' comments. I seem to be a rarity in that I'm not a member of the Abergavenny Leisure Centre, and it's not because I would shame other members of my six packets, because I'm more interested in playing golf. But I think even if you don't accept the arguments in the report, the one thing I've thought with Ian, Nick, Richard and the rest of his team is that they've always understood that with leisure services like this, you've got to keep driving the investment forward, because the moment you slip, you start to have tired and old kit, that's where the membership drops off. So I think there's an economic argument for this as well as the health one, and I think it's brilliant, and I look forward to seeing the improvements.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. You can tell it's coming up to an election year, because we just had a wonderful party political broadcast with gushing praise from most of the Cabinet to other members of the Cabinet, such that it's difficult for any of us Labour members to actually get a word in edgeways. We're all in favour of this. We won't be voting against it, so just cut out the nauseous comments and let's get on to vote. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Thank you. Just before we do that, I'll ask Chief Officer Ian Saunders to come in to answer a few of those questions. Ian.
Thank you, Chairman. Just responding to the questions around the school use and the leisure centre and the continuation of service. We've worked really hard with the executive head and the head of school, and some of the leisure services team have met, and in the outcome, it looks like the facility of the old school gym will be used as a provision to rehouse the existing fitness provision. So whilst it's not going to be as it is now with bells and whistles and air conditioning and all the things that you expect in a normal gym, it will be a continuation of service. It will be an adequate provision for those 20 weeks. And, you know, the school have been very cooperative, and we need to work together on that. So really pleased to say that the school have cooperated well with the leisure team on that basis. Councillor Watts, the delivery of community education, as you know, historically was at the leisure sites, and over time that's gone into a different offer, and I believe there's loads of brilliant ideas coming through. It doesn't sit with leisure services now. That portfolio is with Matthew Gators and Councillor Pavia, but I know there's loads of digital ideas they're having and different platforms. So Matthew Gators probably be the best person to start the dialogue with on what that could look like on the sites and obviously through the towns. But it's great to have the debate, and I'm you know from my history, we used to be on a site where community education used to thrive, and for what reason over the years things haven't progressed to the sites, and they've gone back away from those sites. So I take what you're saying there, and we need to move that forward.
Develop it. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure there was any other questions, Chairman.
I didn't recall any others. No. So if you're happy, then I'll go to the vote in that case.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the recommendations, everyone, was sent out in the report at 2.1 and 2.2. So we'll put that into the chat bar to approve those recommendations. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, for voting. That's well carried. Thank you.
Chair. Can I just thank the officers that have worked on this? They've been brilliant. Ian, Marie, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Okay, brilliant. Moving on then to 6 notices of motion. The first, 6.1, has been deferred until the next meeting in September. So that takes us to 6.2. Which has been submitted by County Councillor Martin Grocott. Can I take that as read, Martin?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And do you have a seconder for that?
Chair. Yeah. I believe Councillor Thomas is going to second.
I have. I've got it now in the chat bar. Yeah, so thank you.
Okay.
So Councillor Tudor Thomas is seconded, and you now wish to speak, Tudor.
Yes, I want to second the motion.
Could I propose the motion?
Yeah, I wanted Martin to propose it first.
Okay, over to you, Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Chair. Back in 2017, the 21st Century Schools programme alighted in Abergavenny, and it profoundly impacts on 2 schools, both of which are in my ward, hence my intimate involvement in campaigns around this issue. It involves the closure of King Henry VIII Comprehensive School and the closure of Derryview Primary School. The chief officer came to address the 2 governing bodies back in 2017, and we were all very excited because there was talk of a 3 to 19 all through school. When the proposals came out for consultation, it was a 4 to 19 school. And amidst much consternation, it was realised that what was being offered here was a first year of private nursery provision that would be attached somehow to the all through school. Certainly the parents and the community in Abergavenny believe that the current nursery provision, which is part of Derryview School, should remain part of the school and should not be put out to private provision. We believe that the new Welsh curriculum covers the ages of 3 to 16, and that in a community like that which Derryview serves, that is best met through formal provision within a school setting. Now, when the Cabinet Member for Education speaks, I hope that he won't tell me that the Welsh Government and Mark Drakeford fully support private provision in nursery care. I know that is true, but it is inevitable because so much of the total nursery provision in Wales is provided within a private setting. There is just nothing we can do about that. But what we have here in the Derryview School area is a situation where a high proportion of the youngsters have speech and language deficit, have a general delay, a failure to thrive. And these things are a direct impact of poverty and disadvantage in the local community. We need the most skilled and qualified staff to get our youngest pupils off to the kind of start that will at least give them an opportunity to make the most of their potential as they go up through school. There is a need for consistency over time and over staffing that would not be provided by starting their educational lives in a private provision. In reception and then moving forwards, there is a need for consistency that will start in nursery. A consistency of leadership, a consistency of opportunities for staff to work together, a consistency of sharing the information on the children, not only their knowledge, but also the knowledge of them as people. A private nursery would be separate, and it might be hand in glove on day one of the new school, and it might be hand in glove in year one of the new school. But there is absolutely nothing to stop a private provision going its own way as we move forward. And indeed, within the last fortnight in Dairyview School, the one bit of private provision which came under Flying Start, which is, of course, for those youngsters who are the most challenged in their need. That private provision was unilaterally closed by the proprietor and the staff made redundant. So we really do need to take our youngest, most vulnerable children out of this risk that the private system provides. There is real nursery expertise in Dairyview Nursery. Parents and the community love it, as I've been able to illustrate with the petition that I will be bringing to you tomorrow, Chair. It's not an attempt to wreck the 21st Century Schools Bill. It is an attempt to strengthen it for the lives of the people it will most affect in Abergavenny. As the local member, I have been proud to work with the community that I serve to really drill home how popular this in-school provision is. I have not met a single parent or relative who collects children from the nursery who wants that to change. And it has been suggested that this is part of trying to undermine the whole scheme. Let me reassure the Cabinet member and the Chief Officer that no one wants a better school for Abergavenny and for the children in my ward than I do. I will commit myself wholeheartedly to working for a successful outcome to this scheme. But I think that in order to be truly successful, to help to bridge that achievement gap, that is one of the reasons why we are suggesting Dairyview should go into the new all-through school, will not be served by children spending their first year in education in a private setting. I would ask all members to support this motion. It is not party political. We are inviting every other member to share with us the views that Tudor Thomas and I have been banging on about in the Labour group. We are two ex-professionals from education. We have both in our different ways seen the impact of deprivation and poverty on outcomes for children and ways in which that can be successfully addressed. I firmly believe, Chair, that by making the nursery provision in the new all-through school part of the school, as it currently is in Dairyview, then we will get the best outcome for our youngsters. I know it would mean that we would not be able to provide wraparound care until 6 o'clock in the evening under the same provision. But I refuse to believe that that is insoluble. And again, I will work my socks off to find ways in which wraparound care can be provided for parents that need it. But at the end of the day, education is about learning. And that learning begins when they're 3. And the kids in Dairyview have got a lot of catching up to do from the first day they start at school. I ask members to support the motion because that is the best way to help them do that catching up. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Groker. Can I ask members also then to try and keep comments as non-repetitive as we can moving forward? Thanks very much. Councillor Tudor Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Diolch yn fawr. I obviously second this motion. I support Councillor Grocott's motion. I'm not going to go over the ground that he has covered. My ward abuts his ward, and I know the area well. I worked in King Henry many years ago, but I know the area generally well. What I'd like to say is I welcome the development for all children in Abergavenny, and I think it is an incredibly important development for children in the Abergavenny area. All three schools are very good schools, and they work hard with those children, and they will benefit from the development. And I know that for some, particularly for Derryview, they will have to move site, which is obviously traumatic in terms of the staff and the children. But in the long term, I think they will benefit. The issue of the private provision has caused a great deal of consternation, and I think it's caused quite a bit of negative publicity in the Abergavenny area. And personally, I very much support Martin Grocott's motion that is removed and it becomes maintained provision for those youngsters. For many families living in that area, they just won't be able to afford it, and that is a crucial factor. So I'd ask members to consider that very carefully. So I'd make a strong plea on behalf of those families, as does Martin Grocott, who live in the area in Lansdowne, Croeshonin wards, and partially in mine as well, for MCC to provide maintained care for the 3 to 4 year olds in the new provision, and that this provision is obviously under the management of the head and the SLT for the whole school. And I think that will very much benefit youngsters, particularly youngsters who come from more challenging backgrounds. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Thank you very much. I'm supportive of this motion today. I have grave concerns that we appear to be reducing the amount of state nursery provision in Monmouthshire. Monmouthshire already has a much lower rate of state nursery provision than our neighbouring counties, and indeed many of the counties across Wales. I've always been slightly concerned as to why we have so little state provision of nursery in Monmouthshire. I'm concerned on two bases. My children both had to go to private nursery provision. It wasn't through my personal choice. I would have probably liked them to have gone to a state nursery for some of that provision. Obviously, I needed some extra hours when I needed them to, I was working more hours, but that wasn't quite the same. Even when you use a nursery which is got is run by a charity and it is only actually providing the state nursery hours, it cannot afford to run with the amount of funding it gets, and therefore parents are asked to pay a top-up fee. At the time when my daughter was attending one of these nurseries, I chatted to some other mums there who were only sending their children part-time to this nursery. And the answer was they couldn't afford to send them on all of the 5 days a week in which they were entitled to, because they couldn't afford to pay the top-up fees for all of those extra days. I have grave concerns that if we start having a private nursery provision, then parents will not be able to afford it. It will cause them an extra burden and they won't be able to manage that. Also, whilst my daughter was at this particular nursery, it shut. The nursery leader needed to retire and no one was able to be found to take over running the nursery provision, and therefore it shut in the July, leaving about 30 sets of parents desperately scrabbling around trying to find nursery provision for their children for the coming September. This was an absolute nightmare, as there is inadequate nursery provision still in the south of the county. We will be at the whims of a private company if we put the state provision that is currently in Derryview into a private hands, and parents and children cannot take those risks. We already have a great nursery there. I do not see any reason why we should have to shut it down and risk taking something on in the private sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Councillor Paul Pavia.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We cannot support this motion today because not only is it misleading, but it's also I have to say I'm a bit bemused what the motion is trying to achieve. We've just concluded a 9-week public consultation process on the governance arrangements for the new school. That was the opportunity for the Labour group to raise concerns on any aspect of those arrangements. I know the member has been deeply engaged in this consultation process, and I'm sure he's already submitted a response, as undoubtedly as have his colleagues who represent the town, both in this council and on the town council. And again, I've no doubt those concerns would have been raised as part of that response. But despite their elected status, they are just a number of stakeholders in a wider group of stakeholders. Given the proximity to the consultation closure, he will appreciate there is very limited information I can share to enable us to have an informed debate this afternoon, because officers are still examining the full range of consultation responses. Those responses will inform the final report, and from that a set of strategic recommendations will be produced, and that report and any associated evidence will be available to the Children and Young People's Committee for pre-decision scrutiny at the start of September. There, I believe, that is the start and the opportunity to have a more informed discussion before the Cabinet meets in October. We will have the opportunity to see what all the stakeholders have said, and we can draw out then those key themes. As he said, he has been involved in this process, and he will recognise that nursery education, and that's for children aged 3, has always been a part of the provision proposed for the new King Henry site. So to say otherwise, I think it's completely disingenuous. However, in line with Welsh Government's policy development for early childhood education and care, which seeks to unify the staff qualification requirements, inspection processes and curriculum for all settings with children aged 0 to 5 years, we did decide to look at a non-maintained setting as an option to be proposed for the new school and test that thinking through the consultation process, and I think that was the right thing to do. Now, the rationale for testing that non-maintained model is manifold, and non-maintained settings, of course, offer the full curriculum as specified by Councillor Grocott, but in addition, it offers families the opportunities to access wraparound childcare. This is a significant benefit for working families, and Welsh Government research with parental focus groups have identified this. It aligns to the 30 hours free childcare offer, which looks to remove barriers to employment. All staff in non-maintained settings have a specific qualification in childcare that focuses specifically on child development. This is a priority for Welsh Government, and given the impact of the pandemic on early years, it will be undoubtedly a high priority for the Welsh Government to take forward in the next few weeks and months. And also, the non-maintained settings across Monmouthshire have got positive engagement from their regulators. These are highly regulated environments and are inspected by both Estyn and Care Inspectorate Wales. Of course, the public and school stakeholders have the opportunity to oppose or support the proposed schemes based on any aspect relating to the governance arrangements. I understand that. I attended every engagement session with governors, staff, parents and the wider community, both online and in person, and I did hear very clearly the concerns raised about protecting the maintained nursery provision in the community and the reasoning and rationale behind those concerns. I did hear those. If those concerns around nursery provision play out across the consultation submissions and it develops as a key theme, which has the potential to undermine the wider project, and I take what Councillor Grocott said about not wanting to undermine this project, but if the community and key stakeholders are saying this is an issue of real concern, then I have no doubt at all, it will have considerable bearing on any strategic decision the Cabinet and the Council will make over the coming months. However, we will only understand those themes when the report is concluded and published. However, I will have to say I caution the member of trying to simplify this issue by suggesting maintained provision is somehow better than non-maintained, because one is delivered by the authority, another is delivered via alternative models, and private provision being one of those alternatives. And I would hate to think that he's given that impression amongst school stakeholders and within the community with which he represents. The vast majority, over 2/3 of our early education settings across Monmouthshire are non-maintained. That's 25 of 37 settings. While over half this county's children are cared for and educated in those settings. Yes, the majority of them are private businesses, but some are delivered through other models, and you will be aware of a model in Abergavenny that's delivered by a group of parental stakeholders. Non-maintained settings do provide the most flexible early childhood education care offer, and he was absolutely right to say that, that's what the Welsh Government has promulgated over the last 6 or 7 years since it published Building a Brighter Future back in 2013. And in that document, it clearly states the government's aim is to improve the quality, flexibility, accessibility and affordability of early years education and childcare. That's what the government wants. That's what his government wants in Cardiff across Wales, and we've subscribed to that here in Monmouthshire. So I would also remind him that these non-maintained private providers are not large multinationals run offshore by Jeff Bezos. These are small, often family-run businesses that are anchored in their communities within which they serve. They employ local people. They commission and buy from local supply chains. These are important elements of the foundational economy within our county, an economy with which, again, his government wants to develop and grow. So if he's saying, or his colleagues are suggesting, these highly regulated settings are somehow stripping the public purse and offering substandard quality of care and education provision, then he should be bold enough to say that. And if he's going, potentially, the Labour manifesto, although it does sound like the Lib Dem manifesto next year is going to be focusing on this, that they're going to redetermine the market of early years education and care by bringing more provision in-house, reducing flexibility, accessibility of choice for hard-working families. Let him say it now, and let him say how the Labour group intends to pay for it, so the public know where we all stand. And I'll be interested to see what he says in his submission. Finally, Chairman, I just want to clarify the first line of the member's motion, which subtly suggests that the financing for our secondary school estate renewal programme is coming from Welsh Government. That's plainly inaccurate. You know, this authority has invested £43 million in Band A. That's £20 million for Caldicot, 23 for Monmouth. And that was a 50-50 split. And we'll be spending circa 20 million on the Abergavenny project, which of course is a 65-35 split. I understand that. You know, the government has to pay a larger proportion for this round, because it would be economically unviable for us if they didn't, and we recognise that fact, and we welcome that they make that investment as a strategic partner. You know, as he goes back to 2018, you know, the 2017, you know, the previous Conservative cabinet who led this authority made the commitment to reinvest in our schools' education and their future, and that is the right thing to do, and this cabinet stands by that pledge. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cleverly. Councillor Edwards, Chris Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I apologise, as I did want to come in on the previous agenda item of leisure centres, but unfortunately I had some IT issues. But back to the motion anyway. First of all, I completely understand the passion that Councillors Grocott and Thomas are showing, especially with being ex-teaching professionals, but I have to be honest, I'm not comfortable with this motion. The whole consultation on Abergavenny school provision hasn't even gone through the CYP committee yet, as Abergavenny councillors had the meeting pulled earlier this month at the last minute. The topic contained in this motion should be part of that discussion at committee level, and I'm surprised that this motion has even been brought forward by Councillor Grocott, who is on that committee and a former chair of the committee, and Councillor Thomas being the current chair of that committee. So let's discuss it as a committee first at CYP, before it goes to Cabinet, and then to full council. That's the correct order of things, as I understand, and the correct procedure, Mr. Chairman. Not this monthly continuation at full council of the same topic. I was taking a look at the last minutes of the last full council, and I believe it does read on there that the Cabinet member mentioned to Councillor Grocott at the last full council meeting that consultation sessions, particularly with Dairyview parents and staff, have advocated strongly to maintain the nursery provision as part of that school. This will be reflected in the report to Cabinet for final decision. The answer is there. So I propose that this motion isn't accepted.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with what Christopher Edwards says. I'm on both on the Children and Young People's Committee, and I'm a governor at King Henry, so I have to declare an interest all round. One question I just want to ask Councillor Grocott. We are told that the Welsh Government supplies so many hours of preschool for each child, and he doesn't say that they provide so much in money, it's in hours. So why are they saying that at some of the nurseries they have to pay a top-up fee? Because surely if the Welsh Government's providing the hours, it should provide the full hours cost, not expect the parents to pay the top-up. That's one of the things I want to know. And the other thing I want to, he did say he's going to try and find other provision for the other hours of the day when the working people want to leave their children till 6 o'clock, but he doesn't give us an answer on it. And if he can't give us an answer on it, surely we're better having it maintained privately, so that those parents can drop the children off at one place and leave them there all day, not have to take them to a maintained nursery for a couple of hours and then come home from work, pick them up again and take them somewhere else. Has he really thought it out? I can't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guppy.
Sorry, I just get my camera in roll. Okay, I think there's a lot of confusion here. We've got nursery provision, non-maintained, and actually we've got private nurseries. And I'm not quite sure how many of the councillors understand the difference. I'll have to declare an interest as a Flying Start health visitor, and just to add in some correct facts regarding the Flying Start playgroup at Derry View. Yes, it did close, but there is somebody else taking over it, and it's a privately run playgroup, and that education starts at the age of 2 and not 3, and it always has been private, as well as the one in Chepstow, where there's an overflow private nursery running the Flying Start playgroup, again start from 2. I have to agree a lot with Paul Pavia. I think people have got to get their head round it's not just nurseries in school and private nursery. We have non-maintained nurseries within this county that are overviewed by Monmouthshire County Council. They have to go through a rigorous application and define that there is a need within their area. I don't think if this nursery goes as a non-maintained, they'll have any difficulty proving that there is a need within that area. And I think what we have to do is look further outside the box in view of what is to come. We need these families to become self-sufficient, and we have to focus on the child. And if these families want to be self-sufficient, they need to have really high standard childcare as well as nursery education. And in bringing the child at the centre of all this, this is what we're here for. It would be benefit if the child is in one place throughout that day. Parents or 2 working parents can earn, if they are working greater than 15 hours a week, 30 hours free childcare. Now, we don't want that being in one centre and then there's no after or lunchtime club in the other. So somebody has to find that. If that happens, they don't go, so they don't get anything. So please don't be blinkered and don't be tunnel visioned. Look at the wider picture and put the children at the centre of all this. I can't accept this motion, and I think you need to really understand that there are private nurseries, there are non-maintained nurseries which are privately run, supported and reviewed and monitored by the Education Authority, and also the nurseries. Nobody likes change, but if there's going to be change that is better for focus on the child and people to be able to get into work, that's going to be better for Monmouthshire and the economy, and that's going to be a better standard of living for those children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guppy. Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll vote against this motion for two reasons. Firstly, it hasn't been considered by the CYP Select Committee, the Children and Young People Committee, and we should be having a full debate about the pros and cons there. Also, by that time in September, we'll have the consultation results, so we can see what they say as well. But I would also like the debate then to consider both the pros and cons of maintained and non-maintained settings, because from my brief look at the subject, it seems as if there's 10 hours of care normally provided, which is sort of like a foundation type of care, and then there's up to 30 hours if you happen to work 16 hours or more a week and you don't earn more than 100,000 a year. So it's a very high threshold. And also that if there's two parents working, again, the same thing is 16 hours plus per week. The problem is that if you have care in a maintained setting, and then you end up with 2.5 hours there per day, you then, if you're working over 16 hours a week, you may well then have to leave work in the middle of your shift or whatever you're doing and try and find somewhere else for your child to go. The main advantage of the non-maintained setting is the wraparound care, which is basically the fact that the private nurseries, which are inspected, tend to be open from 8 till 6, which gives people the opportunity to do a 9 to 5 day if they wish. But even for the 16 hours, it would prove a difficulty. Now, there is a small top-up fee, I think, which is basically, but there's a ceiling on that, and I think I read it was about £7.50 a day. Well, if you are working for longer, then obviously that isn't necessarily going to be a financial hardship for you. So that it's up to 30 hours of care. And effectively, the only way you would be looking at the 10 hours of care would be if you were basically, if you weren't in employment of over 16 hours a week, either as a single person or both, but a couple were also over 16 hours a week. So I don't think this motion really considers all the pros and cons. And I mean, Councillor Grewcock mentioned about the fact that you know, wraparound care is solvable, but going from, as Councillor Guppy mentioned, you know, you want your child in one place for the whole day if you're going to be working those sort of hours, and you can't take time off in the middle to rush back to wherever your provision is. So I think there's pros and cons of both, and I would like perhaps the Chief Officer to perhaps you know, have a word about those pros and cons briefly, but something that I think that we should consider more fully when it comes to the CYP Select Committee. So I think the assumption has been that, you know, maintained settings are always better than non-maintained settings, but as we've heard, they have to go under rigorous inspection in the same way that care homes have to go under rigorous inspection. So I don't think we should rule out, and I think we need to look at you know, what is best to sort out the childcare arrangements. So I don't think this is fully understood by everybody. I mean, mine is only a brief look at it. I mean, I might have got the wrong end of the stick, and you know, I very much like the Chief Officer to correct me if I've got that wrong, but I don't think it's quite as simple as maintained is best and non-maintained isn't, because I think it's far more complex than that. And if we didn't have the private nurseries there to assist, then it would, you know, we certainly rely on them in Monmouthshire. So I won't be supporting the motion because I don't think we've got enough information to do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Watts.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I do think it's a bit naughty of, you know, the Cabinet member and the new councillor Christopher Edwards really, to try and tick off Martin for bringing this forward. He's quite entitled to do so. And the reason he does so is because he is, as you can see, quite passionate about specifically the issue. I'm happy to support Martin's motion because I think what it does do, it really shows, for me anyway, personally, from my perspective, I think it's about continuity. And I think any school that has control over the continuity, it's got to be a benefit for the long-term development of that child in that setting. Thank you, Chair. I won't repeat it because everybody's pretty much regurgitated everything that people have already said, and no doubt Peter will as well now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Watts. Councillor Fox.
I'd hate to let Almond down, Mr. Chairman, but firstly, can I absolutely agree with everything Paul Pavia captured. He did it very eloquently and with great knowledge and understanding, and supported well by Linda as well. And sadly, this is a typical Labour position. I'm sorry, it is political. This is a typical Labour position, and it just demonstrates their continuous suspicion of anything that might be privately run. And, you know, we heard here today that so much of our provision is underpinned by the private sector in Monmouthshire, and they are rooted, as Paul said, in our community, and they supply us a fantastic service. And I think it's unfortunate that Martin, with good, I'm sure, good intention, has brought this forward. It also demonstrates something which we've always tried to steer clear from in 21st century schools, and that's a closed mind. It demonstrates very clearly he and Tudor have a closed mind, and that's not a good thing for the chair of the Children and Young People's Committee that will be considering this in due course to already lay their cards out. The integrity of our 21st century school programme over many years, nearly 20 years, has been underpinned by gaining all of the information we need to review it and to never show that closed position at all, and to and be led by the consultation. I'm disappointed that Martin said that there are risks with private providers. That is not the message we need to go out to people in our communities. And let's point out, whilst we very much welcome and always have Wales Government's contribution to the match funding of our 21st Century Schools programme, our 21st Century programme has been led and driven by this council. The vision, the shape, everything we've committed to over the years has been led from this council. And Wales Government were convinced by our arguments and have supplied the match funding needed. But we have committed virtually every piece of our capital monies over the last 20 years to schools, and that demonstrates the commitment of this council to education. So I'm disappointed this motion's come forward. More so that it's come forward before it should have had proper consideration through the appropriate courses that this council has in place, and it shows a short-sightedness on those members. And I think there needs to be very seriously a consideration if somebody else should chair that Children and Young People's meeting when it does come off. So, Mr. Chairman, I will not be supporting this motion for many of the things which have been said today.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fox. Councillor Petruni.
Thank you, Chair. Is that working? Because I've had all sorts of issues. Thank you, Chair. Can I start with agreeing with Peter Fox that this is political? And it's political in the sense that the Conservatives, and I'll answer Councillor Joe Watkins's question, don't mind inequality. They're very comfortable with it. The previous speaker, Councillor Fox, is Captain Inequality. He has seen over the last 10 years the greatest gap in Wales of inequality between those who have and those who have not, particularly at GCSE level. And what happens is, we all know the evidence says it starts at early on in life, and once those things are set in those early years, it plays out as they get older. And the Conservatives just don't understand. They just don't understand. And Councillor Pavia just alluded to that fact when he said he's bemused by his motion. He's bemused that Labour care about inequality. He's bemused that we care that every child has a start in life, because Conservatives don't understand that. They're either ignorant or willingly ignorant to those issues. And this process line they've all agreed in the Conservative group, and like drones repeat ad nauseum, is just a deflection that they are very comfortable with exacerbating inequality of under-delivering what they promised, of making this county more unequal than it should be. One of the wealthiest counties in Wales, and the Conservatives have overseen the biggest wealth gap, income gap, and educational gap in the country. And that's your previous leader, Councillor Fox. I can't blame Councillor John yet, but I'm sure he'll live up to his master's legacy and make it worse, who knows. But Councillor Fox, Captain Inequality, doesn't mind this, comfortable with this. And they all are comfortable with this. You heard them one by one back up the issue of not having a maintained sector and calling it closed mind. And no, the evidence is out. We've seen the evidence. Private sector has been tried over and over again in England, in Wales, and many other countries. And the evidence, on balance, is very, very clear. It's not our fault the Conservatives don't understand that evidence. It's not our fault they understand numbers or kind of inequality graphs or even look or even care. And I'm not surprised the Cabinet Member for Social Mobility or Social Justice has said nothing, because she knows, and we'll see it over the next couple of years, this will play out, exacerbating that very big problem. So it doesn't surprise me that Councillor Pavey is bemused because he doesn't understand. It doesn't surprise me that Captain Inequality is comfortable with this. And everyone should support this Labour motion because it's fighting against conservatism, and conservatism is very comfortable with supporting those who have and those who have not. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Petrini. I've got two more raised hands, which I'll take before going back to Councillor Grocott, before we then go to the vote. So I've got Councillor Penny Jones and then Bob Greenland. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, just in reply to Councillor Petrini, what happened to choice? What happened to democracy? And what happened? How can anyone accuse private nurseries en masse of being inadequate, of not being hardworking and not having the same, providing the same provision as maintained provision? I just find it so insulting on behalf of all the private nurseries that are in Monmouthshire, people who work so hard and have standards which are going to be exactly the same as those of other nurseries. They have to obey, they have to be regulated, and that's what they are. I find it deeply insulting to say that they are not up to the standard of others. And the other thing I'd like to say on behalf of the children and the parents is, when we discuss this, there are pros and cons to both, but when we discuss this, we must think of something that hasn't been mentioned yet, and that is a safeguarding issue. The thought of having to collect children after 2.5 hours in one place and transporting them, as Councillor Guppy pointed out, to somewhere else opens up a can of worms, which is really, really, and a risk, and risks that really will be hard to assess. So it's a safeguarding issue. It's insulting. And I think the reason that we're being caught, that we are bemused as a party, is not at the motion, it's at the timing of the motion, and that will be forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Greenland.
Thank you, Chair. I thought this was actually quite a good debate until I heard Councillor Rooney's remarks. I think that it lowers the standard of the debate in this council when such personal
Sorry,
you are
sorry,
Bob.
sorry, Bob,
muted by somebody.
Can you hear me now?
We can, yeah.
I was saying, Chair, that I thought that the level of this debate was extremely good until we heard from Councillor Petrini, and he has used personal attack to lower the standard of this debate in a way that I think is despicable, frankly. We should be debating it without these attacks on individuals. He particularly attacked Councillor Fox, and I know more than probably anybody how much Councillor Fox cares about inequality, how much he has worked throughout his time as a councillor to improve the lot of children who are the most deprived. Have we succeeded? No, we haven't, but neither has any other council. It is a hugely difficult problem, But to blame Councillor Fox and to blame a Conservative council in the way that he has is frankly despicable, and I think he should be called to account for the way that he has dealt with that in this debate. Now, if I can move on to the words of Councillor Graucut and Thomas, they have led in quite a reasonable way. I disagree with them, but nevertheless, they have been very reasonable, and so have the other members in the way that they have debated this. But listening to them, you would have thought that we had already made the decision about what sort of nursery accommodation we'd be providing. And it is quite clear from Councillor Pavia's remarks and others that we have not. And neither is it the time for us to make those until we have been through the consultation process and until, as others have said, it has been dealt with by the proper scrutiny committee. And then it comes back when we're full of the facts. And what is also quite clear is that there are arguments for and against private and maintained school, maintained nursery provision. So let's not jump to conclusions before we have the proper debate. This is not the time for the proper debate. And because of that, I cannot be supporting the motion this afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Greenland. Councillor John just put his hand up as I was speaking. So, Councillor John.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, can I commend the outstanding contribution from Councillor Paul Pavia, who's really led this consultation from the front. He's attended every consultation session, listened to the views of people who've attended those sessions, and I think it's absolutely right now that we weigh up the evidence and consider the pros and cons of both maintained and non-maintained options, because there are pros and cons to both. And as Councillor Greenland has said, there is a debate to be had about whether it's a maintained or a non-maintained nursery. That decision hasn't been made, and for the Labour group to bring forward this motion, it does feel like they've completely jumped the gun, and it does feel a bit like attention seeking, to be honest, rather than an informed debate about the pros and cons and what would be most appropriate in terms of nursery provision for children and young people in Abergavenny. As Councillor Pavia set out, there are plenty of opportunities to debate these merits properly, and ensuring that we do consider the evidence in so doing. As others have said, that there is a downside to maintained nursery provision, which is that parents can't access the 30 hours free childcare, which I have to say was a fantastic policy introduced by David Cameron, which the Welsh Government then rolled out in Wales a couple of years afterwards. And it's a real lifeline for parents who work. I think there are real limitations if you can only access 2 hours of childcare, and of course it's 2 hours per day. You can't split it in such a way that you can have a full day's childcare one day and then not the rest of the week. Who on earth can do hold down a job and only work two hours a day? That's really challenging and really limiting. And we recognise that there are pockets of deprivation in parts of Abergavenny. I mean, I have to say to Councillor Petruni and Councillor Graucut, you know, the Labour Party has represented many of Wales's most deprived areas for 100 years, and they're still deprived. What we need to do is break that cycle of deprivation, and one of the main ways out of poverty is enabling people to work, to get a job, to have the security of a regular paycheck, to be able to provide for your family. So that's what we need to be able to do. And I'm afraid that there are downsides to a maintained nursery, which doesn't encourage people or enable people to hold down a job. So it makes it very difficult. So it's absolutely right that we consider the option of a non-maintained setting, which could enable people to access more flexible and affordable childcare. There's a proper process now for us to go through, including listening to the views of the Children and Young People Select Committee. And I think that's how we will make a decision as a cabinet, as a council, based on the evidence, not based on socialist ideology that anything involving the private sector is good and everything should be run by the state. You know, we've got to consider this properly. So I'm really sorry to hear that this negativity is being whipped up by the Labour Party, and really leading some people to question this massive investment that we're making in the life chances of children and young people in the north of the county, which is going to be such a valuable asset, not just for the children who go to that school, but also to the wider community. You know, it's so important in ensuring that young people get on that path to a successful and rewarding career and give them the opportunity for a happy and fulfilling life. So this investment is much needed in Abergavenny, and I'm really proud that it's a Conservative council that's delivering on this really exciting project. This is going to be a flagship public building in the county, and I'm convinced it's going to make a real difference to the life chances of young people and children throughout the north of Monmouthshire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor John.
Chairman, can I just say, I can't get my hand up on here, and I don't want to say too much. I just want to ask, Chairman, can somebody clarify to members when this will be coming to scrutiny? Because, you know, I mean, scrutiny is the final document. It just doesn't come and then go away and come back again. So it's going to be the final document. Anybody got any idea when this will be coming to scrutiny? Because, you know, I mean, it just gets talked about today. We need an idea of when the final document will go to scrutiny. I think that's so important today. Yes, they may have jumped the gun, but that ain't an issue for me here, is making sure that when it comes to scrutiny, it is the final document, not keeps going backwards and forwards. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Howarth, Paul Pavey has written in the chat bar 8th of September.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And just for the record, everyone, Councillor Taylor has sent her apologies. She's not been able to make the meeting, just for the record. Thank you. So just before we go to the vote, Councillor Grocott, did you want to come back?
Briefly, Chair, if I may. I'd firstly like to record that the British fishing industry is obviously in very good shape, because this afternoon we've seen shoals of red herrings. We've talked around and around this topic. Let me strip it back to its very basic issue and get rid of all this Conservatives are doing this, Labour are doing this. Let's get back to that day when the Chief Officer for Children and Young People spoke to the governors at King Henry and then spoke to the governors at Derryview and introduced the idea of a school that would run from 3 to 19, just in line with the new Welsh Government curriculum, which starts at 3. So the Flying Start provision for 2-year-olds doesn't form part of this, good as it may be. What the Chief Officer said was that Derryview needed to be seen as a very special case. And that's why, quite specifically, that school was chosen and not another school such as Cantref in Abergavenny, or indeed any of the other schools in the King Henry catchment. Derryview was chosen because its community is deprived and disadvantaged. Children in very large numbers find transition from one phase to another very difficult, hence taking it through so there's no break between junior and secondary. I would say the same applies between nursery and reception. Children need a settled start from the very first day they walk into an education setting, when they have so much disadvantage to overcome, if we are to help these young people achieve what they are capable of achieving. We have failed in the past, as has been said, and this is a bold way of trying to address that. It would see one school leadership team, one school vision, staff able to work together to share their expertise across phases within the school, so that those youngsters who are struggling to move between phases could be supported in a way that can't be in separate schools. The chief officer's vision wasn't one of one party or another party, of dogma or non-dogma, of saying some of the quite cruel things that have been said this afternoon. The chief officer was talking about ways in which we can open up equality and the opportunity of equality, starting at the age of 3. What this motion is about is saying, let's get back to that vision, because what's happened in reality is that the consultation is now about a 4 to 19 school. That's what the document was called, an all through 4 to 19 school, despite that 2017 promise that it would be a 3 to 19 school. Yes, there will be 3-year-olds there, but they will not be part of the school. They will be in separate provision. And for goodness sake, I did not say that private provision at nursery was a bad thing. I am saying it would be better in this specific circumstance if it was a 3 to 19 provision. That's what we were told it was going to be. That's what it should be. It's not party political. It's about equality of opportunity. And therefore, I move the motion, Chair.
Thank you very much. That's already been seconded. So we'll ask for Democratic Services to put that into the chat bar to be voted on, please. Thank you, members. Okay, that's been defeated. Thank you very much, members, for a very healthy discussion. We're moving on then to agenda item 7, which is members' questions. 7.1 from County Councillor Chris Edwards to County Councillor Paul Pavia, Cabinet Member for Education. Councillor Edwards, are you happy to take that as read?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Pavia.
Thank you, Chair. Can I thank Councillor Edwards for his question? In October 2017, the Cabinet then committed to replacing Chepstow School as part of the Band B funding for 21st Century Schools programme, and I can assure him that the new Cabinet is absolutely dedicated to that commitment. While the initial focus is, of course, on the development of Abergavenny within the Band B investment stream, we will be undertaking important preparation work with Chepstow Comprehensive School to ensure that we are ready to bid for Band C investment when that window opens, and that we can react quickly to make that in principle business case submission, as I said, when that window opens in about 3 years' time. So from September, the 21st Century Schools team will be strengthened with the appointment of a full-time experienced educationalist in Tim Bird. Tim was the former deputy head at Monmouth Comprehensive School and was a key figure who worked closely with us in developing the new school project there. So I think the team will really benefit from his experience and expertise. Tim will work with Chepstow School and the cluster primary schools to develop the education brief for the Band C development project through stakeholder engagement and workshops. And I'll make sure that both he and other local members where the catchment covers Chepstow School are engaged when this work begins.
Thank you very much. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Edwards?
I do, yes. First of all, can I say thank you to Councillor Pavia for his very encouraging answer. I very much look forward to a fuller discussion on this very important issue for Chepstow at a future meeting of the CYP committee later on this year. As a supplementary question, though, I know that the late Councillor Dudley and yourself have been true champions of education provision in Chepstow over the many years you've been a councillor, and fully appreciate the importance of continuing to invest in current schools until, of course, the very much welcome time when a new 21st century school is built in Chepstow. Now, we need to maintain good learning facilities across the whole county, and with this in mind, Chepstow has nearby competition in the form of Wydene School just across the border. Could you inform this council as to what investment has been made in relation to Chepstow School over the last 3 years and where that money has been invested? Thank you.
Yeah, can I thank Councillor Edwards for his supplementary and obviously for his really welcome comments. And Councillor Devi was a long time governor at Chepstow School and was a real strong advocate for the school, both locally and on this council when he served. You're absolutely right. I think, you know, I said at the time when we understood the need to replace the school was going to take longer than we anticipated. You know, I think the council said at the time, and I agree with that, that they would ensure that facilities continue to be invested in. And over the past 3 years, the council has done that. You know, they have spent in excess of £1 million to enhance the current facilities at Chepstow School. And this works has included recladding and remodelling works, improving lighting at the school to make it more energy efficient, as well as spending over £200,000 on IT facilities and IT infrastructure. During the summer holiday, there will be resurfacing works will be undertaken to the access roads and through the site, and there will be additional decoration will be undertaken as well in the classrooms and shared common spaces, and there will be continuation of the efficiency work in the school as well as the leisure centre, which is in line with the council's carbon commitment. I can say to the member, it is pleasing that the school has already reported back to me that they are seeing the benefits of the energy efficiency work that's been undertaken to date, particularly in the reduction of energy costs of lighting, which is obviously going to help their budgetary position. So we are already realising the positive rewards of this investment. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pavia. Okay, 7.2 from County Councillor Chris Edwards to County Councillor Jane Pratt, Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Neighbourhood Services. Chris, are you happy to take that as read again?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jane Pratt.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and can I again thank Councillor Edwards for his question. On the wider matter of road safety, I can absolutely reassure Councillor Edwards and all members that road safety is a top priority. Members will be aware from the seminar earlier this week that we have ambitious plans to roll out 20-mile-an-hour zones within our towns and villages, well in advance of Welsh Government's proposed statutory change expected in April 2023. We have secured Welsh Government funding for 2 of Wales' 8 20-mile-an-hour pilots covering Abergavenny and Sevenside, and we will be implementing settlement-wide 20-mile-an-hour zones in Divorden, Math and Monmouth, including Wisham, Mynydd-Bach and Shire Newton, as well as Mountain Road and the town centre in Chepstow. Further schemes are already scheduled for 2022-23 for Chepstow, Dindistow, Gilwan, Mitchell Troy, Usk and the Wye Valley villages. The council does provide a comprehensive programme of road safety training in schools to ensure our young people are able to walk, cycle or scoot to school safely. Officers are submitting a funding bid to extend cycle training to adults and secondary schools. We are seeking to work with all of our schools to develop school travel plans. With specific regard to the area along Welsh Street and St Lawrence Road, officers propose to submit a bid for Safe Routes in Communities funding in the new financial year to consider improvements to the gentle speed humps on Welsh Street and to pavement widths and the request for a pedestrian crossing on St Lawrence Road for delivery in 2022-23. That will of course be subject to receipt of funding. In addition, a town-wide 20-mile-an-hour zone is proposed for Chepstow in 2022-23, which is likely to include this part of the A466 within the town boundary and where there are property frontages. Members, also, if I can take the opportunity to tell members that they will be aware of the resource challenges currently experienced in the highway service, and I am pleased to confirm that proposals to address this were approved this week, with staff consultation followed by a recruitment campaign commencing immediately. Thank you very much, Chairman, and happy to take any further question from Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Councillor Edwards, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, please. Thank you, Councillor, for your positive response again. As you'll be well aware, I campaigned on road safety during the recent by-election. It is very much a sort of a pet topic for me, if you like. Incidentally, I would like to say that I very much enjoyed a recent meeting I had with senior officers to discuss road safety in St Kingsmark. And there's also a very positive outcome from that meeting, some of which you've just mentioned now, and in a review being conducted. I've also carried out my own review and look forward to further discussions with these officers and yourself, so we can move forward and achieve a satisfactory outcome for the many concerned residents of St Kingsmark along those two roads. Rather than an actual supplementary question, can I just simply invite you to ward walk this area with me, those two roads? And that can be a sort of continuation of this review, if you like, so that we can both fully appreciate how busy these two roads are together and the road safety implications for the area.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I say that I'd be absolutely delighted to join you on a ward walk, and we can sort that out straight away. And can I also congratulate Councillor Edwards on the brilliant way he has gone straight in and is getting things actioned in the ward, and he's made such a brilliant start. It really is very well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt.
Thank you.
Thank you both. OK, moving on then to item 8, which is the last bit of business for the day, which is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of June 2021. Does anyone have any comments or questions regarding those minutes? If not, I'll take them that they have been accepted, and I'll sign those after the meeting. And that concludes our meeting for today. So thank you very much, members, for your motions.
Before you finish, Chair, did you say about declaring interest? You didn't declare interest at the start. And I'm a chair of not chair. I'm governor at Ysgol Gymraeg of Eni, and obviously Martin Grocud is at King Henry, and etc. So I don't want to be seen as not declaring an interest. And the date of CYP that was given is incorrect. It's the 9th of September.
OK, thank you very much, Tudor, for the correction on the date, 9th of September. That will obviously come out to CYP members in any event. What we'll do, we'll send them an email out after the meeting for members to make their declarations of interests if they're caught up in that same situation. Thank you very much. So that does conclude our business for the day. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us. Thank you again to members for their questions and also for their motions. And I hope that everyone enjoys their August off, and yeah, get some rest and don't spend too much time out in the sun. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Well done.
Bye.
Thank you, Matt. Well, Chair.